All right. Good evening, anyone and everyone that joins us tonight. This is the second virtual community care party that we're doing, and just really excited about tonight. Have a lot of things lined up. Have a lot of great people joining us. I'm waiting for some of them to join the studio. We're going to kick off with wellness, but first want to share a couple of things about tonight's theme. Tonight's theme, we are um, we're going to be unpacking Autism Acceptance Month. We're going to be talking about the DC Child Justice Coalition and our first cohort that we just launched, which is a cohort of caregivers for Political Education Bootcamp. Sorry, we just wrapped it up. We didn't just launch it. We just wrapped it up. Sorry, I'm still very not used to this whole going live thing, so sorry if I'm underprepared for it, but we're gonna sum it up with some members of the DC Child Justice Coalition. We're also joined by a very special guest, Carla Reed Witt, and others of the Coding Dyslexia DC, and we're going to be talking about literacy and importance of literacy for dyslexic and other neurodivergent children. So that's pretty much the thing for tonight. So as we get into our wellness moment, waiting for Fari to show up. There's Fari. I'm going to pull Fari in first to the studio here. And we just, we love to start any event, any activity, really just to ground ourselves. I know that I need it, so I'm going to go off camera and fix myself a bit. Give Fari the spotlight, and Fari, don't get intimidated with the spotlight. It's spotlight so that you could shine, right? Like, we just really want to take in we missed you so much Friday. Everyone's giving you a shout out. Friday again was the last day of the DC Child Justice Coalition. And you are our wellness queen.
Thank you so much.
All right, so I'm gonna give
I love these spaces because it gives us the complete agency that we don't get within the system of care. It's safe, it's nurturing, it's holistic. It meets our needs because we keep us safe, right? We keep us safe, healthy, and strong. So, namaste, everyone. I greet you in the name of peace and happiness. I hope that you all are able to be fully present. We have done this practice before, but I felt in my spirit that it was worth repeating. So, the mindfulness practice of breath and body is what I wanted to leave you with, because this practice has been instrumental for someone like me that has PTSD. And let me just be transparent and share with you all. Today, I had this week, and especially earlier today, um, I had a lot of moments of self doubt, right? And self pity. But before I go further and get into that, let us begin with the land acknowledgement. Before we speak of ourselves, let us honor the ancestors. I honor all of your wise and bright ancestors. I also especially pay homage to the Pamunkey, Piscataway, and Anacostan Indians, the original custodians and stewards of this great nation's capital. I honor them. I ask if your feet are grounded or if your bottom is grounded. Take note of the solid foundation upon which you stand or rest. I invite you to just feel the vast, wide air above our heads and giving thanks and gratitude for all that has been bestowed upon us, because we now are the stewards and custodians not only of this land, but our families, ourselves, and our communities. And so, this is what I wanted to share with you guys. Um, Someone may be either on one accord or having similar experiences. So, we as the matriarchs and caretakers, we have to do it all. We have to be the teacher, the chef, the janitor, provide meals and cook homework and deal with special education issues, IEP meetings, health issues, medication management, healthcare aids. Um, we have to do everything. And I had these moments of self pity and self doubt this week because I felt like, why don't I have something that gives me pleasure and joy? And even we can parallel this to a fruitful relationship. Why don't I have someone or something that gives me joy? And I realized everything that I was looking for is already inside of me. Everything else is a bonus. I had to stop. I had to take notice of my breath. I had to acknowledge the sensations in my body, because if I didn't, they were going to take over and manifest into depression and anxiety, which for me turns into medical issues. And so let's do this basic, very basic mindfulness practice of breath and body. So when we have those moments of being overwhelmed or underwhelmed, we can regain our presence and we can balance our energies. So I invite you to find a position that allows you to be alert and your spine as erect as you can muster, but not stiff, and relaxed. I invite you to lower your gaze or close your eyes, even go off camera if you want it to be extremely personal. Let's establish a simple sense of presence. Now allowing your awareness to scan through your entire body and wherever possible, softening and releasing areas of physical tension. Let's release those tense areas. You might take a few full breaths. And then allow your breath to be natural. Bring your attention to where you most and easily detect your breath, or perhaps where it's most pleasurable. Letting this place, experiencing the breath, become your home base or your anchor. Let that breath anchor you to this present moment. noticing this breath right here. If the breath is not a good home base for you, you might instead anchor your attention to the sensations in your hands or the sensations of your whole body just sitting here. Now, with a relaxed and interested attention, discovering what the sensations of the breath or your chosen anchor feel like, moment to moment. Where is your attention now? Each time you notice that your mind wandered off is a moment of mindfulness. Now, very gently, bringing your attention back to the inflow and outflow of the breath or your chosen anchor, offering a relaxed but wakeful presence. Now, scanning your body and noticing if any particular sensations are strong or calling your attention. If so, allowing the breath of your home base or your anchor to recede to the background and bringing an interested and kind presence to those sensations. What do they feel like? You might be aware of heat or chills, tingling, aching, twisting, stabbing, or vibrating, but with a soft and open awareness, feeling the sensations as they noticing, are they pleasant or unpleasant? But as you fully attend to them, do they become more intense or do they dissipate? Noticing how they change. When the sensations are no longer a strong experience, returning to mindfulness of breathing or your chosen anchor. Let us sit with that for a few seconds. If you found it difficult to stay with strong sensations, you might breathe with them, letting the breath help you find some balance and openness in the midst. It can also be helpful to name those sensations, seeing if there's a word that describes your experience. It can be tightness, ache, heat or pressure. And there's no need to strain or run through a mental thesaurus to describe and find the right word. But just notice what word arises in this awareness and mentally repeat it to yourself in a very soft tone, letting the naming be soft in the background with 5% of your attention and with 95% on the actual experience. I have come to call this experience me learning how to hold pain. But you might name it something else. And you might ask yourself, and noticing any sensations that are predominant, and then ask yourself, can I be with this? Directly feeling that flow of sensations, whether it's subtle or strong, letting life be just as it is. And now returning to your home base or your anchor or that breath or those particular sensations, offering a calm and steady attention. And if during this last minute or two, strong sensations call your attention, let your primary anchor recede and bring in full attention to whatever is arising, naming what you notice, offering your presence. And if nothing strong is calling your attention, continue to rest with your home base or your anchor. Relax and alert. Now, sense your breath in the foreground, but still aware of the field of sensations in the background. You are learning to be centered and balanced and present for the breath and the living world of sensations, wisely aware of this changing life. I invite you to take just a few breaths before we turn to the space. I just wanted to say, may you all have peace. May you all have happiness. And it has been an absolute joy to practice with you.
Namaste. Thank you so much for that, Fari. I think, me kind of
Namaste.
getting the hang. Namaste. Namaste. Thank you so much. Me getting the hang of the StreamYard did not allow me to get the full blessing, but I will be re-watching this and using that. Like so many of the other opportunities you've given us for these wellness moments, which are really significant. So I thank you for blessing us with that. And I would love to talk a bit about your story. I'm gonna pull up Renee. Um, just because I want to take just a few minutes to sum up the boot camp. And while our fierce and fearless partners in the DC Child Justice Coalition, not many are on. They're out conquering great heights in the community, I'm sure, and may join us later. So particularly shouting out Mothers Outreach Network, who is a member of the DC Child Justice Coalition, also starting a legal clinic for families who have been separated. Melody did the week that we had the child welfare, when we did insight on the child welfare system. But also shout out to Serve Your City. So not She Born Free would never, She Born Free, FixPat, none of our organizations would really be as fortified as we are growing to be. If it wasn't for Serve Your City, who's just such a committed, dedicated thought partner, fiscal sponsor, and so many amazing mutual aid solutions are solved through that network. So big shout out to Serve Your City. And also, of course, our team with Cheap on Free, you guys, the Acoma Project team. So I know you guys just kind of came in there. You can't hear me? Sorry. Man, can you hear me, Renee? Okay, Renee can hear me. Oh man. So far, hopefully we can have a conversation with you. Hopefully it can fix itself. But if not, Renee, we could talk just a few minutes about what you've experienced in the 7 weeks. So we started the journey, and oh, before I go any further, the boot camp, the Caregiver Political Education Bootcamp, was funded by a coalition grant that we received from Diversity Funds. And also, just want to shout out Diversity Funds for being so loyal to the grassroots organizations. So many, not just FixPad, but so many other nonprofit organizations and fiscally sponsored grassroots entities. And so we are really grateful to be a recipient of that. I hope my internet is not giving as bad as a feedback as it's looking on my end. So while is that Fari coming back? Gonna bring Fari back on. Hopefully, can you hear us now, Fari?
Yes.
Okay, great. So just started to talk about the Caregiver Political Education Bootcamp, and just wanted to sum up with you guys, and looking forward to really working with the DC Child Justice Coalition, which does comprise of FixPat and Keyboard
Please.
Free, as well as Others Outreach Network and Serve Your City, Worth Six Mutual Aid Network. But this was our very first cohort. This vision of this cohort actually came at the time last summer, when we were wrapping up the first cohort of PAT, Parents Advocacy Action Team, which Fari, you were part of, right? And we had our hashtag Pat Down 202, right? We're still patting down 202, even as Pat has transitioned. And so this was really how we thought was the best way to grow our initiative here, to be in community with other caregivers, and to do more than extract, right? We didn't want to just engage in just organizing, which political education is a part of organizing, but it wasn't so much about our output as much as it is about the input. So you guys haven't gotten your care packages yet, and I'm hoping to do that in person. Hopefully we can go break bread together. But all 10, so we had 23 applicants, right? I don't know if you guys know this detail. We had 23 applicants with the boot camp. That's a big thanks to Fari and your organizing. I mean, not only are you our wellness queen, you are a true blue organizer and deliver every time, right? And so thanks to your organizing, we had and as well as Claudia. So shout out to Claudia. Claudia will be joining us later on. We were able to get 23 applicants. Of the 23 applicants, we were able to select. And again, of the 23, if you applied and did not get selected for this cohort, we definitely aim to be in community with everybody that wants to be in community with what we're growing. And so it was an opportunity. Each week we took on different topics. I mean, we started out talking about carceral systems, right? Just carceration. And we're joined by Samantha Davis, Black Swan Academy. Shout out to Black Swan Academy. Black Swan also is the convener of the Police Free Schools Coalition, which we are a part of, which the Acoma Project team, which you guys are a Acoma Project team, are also a part of. And so it was really precious to have Samantha Davis really break down that part. But as you guys know, we also have our internal check-in. And in our check-in, before we unpacked patriarchy, we talked about matriarchy. So we talked about what we were for before what we talked about what we were against, right? And by patriarchy, I also want to say personally, I don't know how you guys see this, but in my mind, I look at Eurocentric patriarchy. I know there are many patriarchies. I don't think all patriarchies are vulturistic, parasitic, or hypermasculinist, right? I think there is a function for a fatherhood and positive masculinity, right? But what we when we say patriarchal systems, we're really thinking about those rooted in the white supremacist agenda, in the social contract, which we didn't get too deeply into all of that. But it was really a solid foundation in understanding that they are systems that inform, or frameworks that inform the system functions. And while it went really out and grand, I think we were able to bring it back in when we went right the next week, and we talked about the South Capitol Street Memorial Act. We were joined by Dr. Sharnita Scott of Department of Behavioral Health, who is a major blessing to this work, because not only is she a Washingtonian, she also has kind of grown up in Department of Behavioral Health. Was her level of institutional knowledge of what happened on the tragedy on South Capitol Street, I think, is immeasurable. And her understanding, like, she earned her PhD while working at DBH and has been committed. And so she came to give back to the community, helped us understand the laws that are governing the school-based behavioral health program in DC. One's called the school-based mental health program. And, there's a lot of back and forth as to mental health, behavioral health. We don't got to get into that drama, but, explaining to us how the law impacts the implementation. Then we went in our third week and we had Lewis Bossing. Shout out to the Bazelon Center for Mental Health, and as well as the Office of the Student Advocate, which is led by Serena Hayes. Shout out to Serena Hayes. But we were joined by Heather Blumenthal Love, who works in Serena Hayes' office, which gave us Special Education 101. Week 4, we were joined by Melody Webb, our very own Melody Webb of Mothers Outreach Network, as well as LaShonda Adams of the UDC David Clark School of Law. And they broke it all the way down, broke me internally, because I think I was completely dysregulated after that session. Couldn't believe how much money is being wasted in the child welfare system, money that should be going to families like ours and the members of the cohort, to make sure that child and family services shouldn't look so carceral, so punitive, so colonial, right? When there's so much money offered to improve the quality of life for children and families in the District of Columbia. Well, our journey continued. This was week 4. Week 5, we were joined. I wish I had this in front of me. That would make sense because now I'm drawing a blank. Week 5, so I'm just gonna transition because I think I've said a lot. I want to hear what you guys thought. If you could say maybe. We summed it up last week with universal design of learning. I remember week 5 now. Week 5, we were joined by our Medicaid experts, right? We're joined by Department of Healthcare Finance. So Melissa Bird, thank you so much. Shout out to Melissa Bird. I mean, we love when our civil servants are willing to roll up their sleeves and come into community spaces. So that was great. And also just long and tried and tested, committed, nonprofit leader or organizational leader, the DC Behavioral Association, really, really broke down Medicaid and some benefits that some people may not have known about. So, shout out to DC Behavioral Health Association and Department of Healthcare Finance. Our 6th week, we were joined by Olga Costa Price, who helped us understand decarceral models. Right. So we shifted to our last 2 weeks to not just things that, well, we kind of started in week 5 when we see Medicaid as a potential lifesaver or mitigator of interventions, and how to make sure that your family is getting all that they can out of the Medicaid system in order to be healthy and happy and served, right? Appropriate interventions. We talked about the multi-tiered system of support with Olga Costa Price, and we ended our series with Andrew Tisha Fitzgerald, who is the author of Anti-Racism and the Universal Design for Learning. So I said a whole lot. Captioning. So there isn't captioning on StreamYard. There is captioning on Zoom. And yes, we absolutely, please call us all out on accessibility. We are working. I think we have to have a private company if we want to do captioning. And I want to be self-critical just about a lot of the accessibility issues. And hopefully we'll unpack that when we're talking about autism acceptance and how we can do better on these streaming features. But those are our 7 weeks. And would want to open up to you guys. Let me be quiet. And so what did you guys get out of it, especially from your unique vantage point? So Renee, Fari, what say you?
Good evening, everybody. This is Renee Davis, and I want to do thank you, Chioma, for the multiple levels of accessing this critical curriculum. Speaking of Universal Design for Learning (UDL), one of the things that I really appreciated about participating with you and with your invited invitees for this fellowship, even though was that you were able to provide multiple layers and multiple ways of accessing which information which is going to ultimately be life or death for us as family systems and our youth. A lot of times when you are thrust into disability, you're thrust into a world where you didn't come prepared. You don't have your suitcase. You don't have a backpack of stuff. You don't have a backpack of privilege. You don't have a rolling suitcase of information or acceptance. A lot of times we come to our experiences with disability as just newbies and as new vessels. And there's a lot of information that's thrown out at us as family members of people with disabilities, as parents and moms and dads and such forth of children navigating these systems. But a lot of times that information doesn't take into account who we are as the receivers. We might get a flyer thrown in the bottom of a book bag. Oh, come see this. Oh, or we might get like a text message from a teacher. The phone call might start out, come get your kid because your kid needs to be placed in a different or more restrictive environment. You know, a lot of information is thrown up at us as parents of families with disabilities, and very little of it is tailored to our needs. Very little of it is offered to us without significant financial incentives of the people offering the information. And very little of it is even hosted or platformed or expert or authoritatively curated by Black women for other Black women. You know, so without getting into the weeds of all the different things we experienced during that 7th-week period, I just want to give a complete Genius Award shout out, glitter bomb, to Chioma, to Fari, and to the women of this group for daring to create an environment where we can access this information in a way that honors who we are first. And again, that's no shade to our special friend on the call. I see Lydia K. Brown, who I know is autistic Hoya and her other lifespan there. But I just want to also say to her, him, they that are listening into the call that this is a chance for us to really remake our own narrative and save our own selves and save our own lives. So again, let me I'm gonna cut off my mic. I'm gonna listen quietly.
No,
and I'm
no,
gonna absorb.
keep it going. We really needed that. And shout out to you, Mama, right? A mother. Shout out to Michelle
Uh-huh.
Parrish, right? To all the mothers
Mm-hmm.
out there, right? And you,
Yeah.
especially in Fari, right? Like showing up when you didn't even have to, and really engaging and embracing, just the spirit of motherhood, the spirit of kinship, the embracing, the inclusivity to the best of our ability, right? We could have done better. I am very self-critical about that, about like knowing how to do better. I was self-conscious about the self-description. So I intend to keep to do that, to describe myself as I don't even know how to describe myself. I probably need a script to do that visual, accessible support, because then I start getting too much in my head about how am I describing myself physically to support those who are visually impaired to begin to know me. But when Louis Bossing did that, I was like, that's an important thing. So once I kind of figure out internally why it's a block for me to describe myself, I have too many issues. You guys don't follow the train. But Fry, I would love to get your thoughts before we move on and bring up our literacy queens, right? I mean, not just these are soldiers, these are warriors, these are people, these are fierce mothers who have gotten legislation on the books. But we'll get to the literacy question in a minute. But Fari, what's the key takeaway that you had? You missed the last session, but you got a few others, and they're all available on YouTube, by the way, for anyone who wants to watch that.
Great, because I was just sitting here thinking, I missed the healthcare finance session. I really wanted to be at that session. In fact, at every session. Let me just say this. Dr. Oru, you need a Netflix documentary for all that you have poured into us mothers. It needs to be archived in Black history. It needs to be documented and categorized. You are, I don't even know why I'm emotional. I'm almost 60 years old. This is my second time around on this journey. I have never, in the mental health space, in the special ed space, in the advocacy space, period, encountered anyone as compassionate. Because compassion means that you move back. I have never met anyone passionate as you You give, you are dose. And I've met people in my lifetime who I reverence as a actualizes their thing. And this is a manifestation of every cross that you have bore. And you pour so much into families and to the people of this cohort. When I tell you that you are a chosen people, that you are highly favored to have experienced this journey, this is not something that DCPS or charter school or even a private school would give to its parents. Because what we have to always realize is that systems are not designed for our success, and programs are not created with our participation in mind. But what Chioma has done is empowered you to know step by step every incremental aspect of advocacy, of of the politics of it all, of the bureaucracy. I dare you, I challenge each of you to tell me where you have found an incentivized program like this that has given you some tools in your toolbox in so many different aspects. Week by week, Chioma, you strategically crafted this thing so that every single caregiver could walk away changed, informed, well informed, not just informed, well informed. Because I thought I had, I'm feeling like, sometimes I be feeling like, yeah, I've learned a lot. I got a little seasoning on me. I learned so much in this cohort, just being a part of it. Um, I'm moved to tears because not for any kind of sadness, but okay, just let me. I'm gonna close on this. I was watching this documentary called "Women in the Movement," and that's where that idea was birthed. I was like, Chioma needs a "Women in the Movement" documentary. People don't know how unsung you are as a champion for not just even disability rights, just for human rights.
Yeah.
So I'm so honored to have been a part of this journey. Um, in all transparency, from the first day I met Chioma, I have been,
It was love from at first sight.
it was love at first sight. I have been tugging at her coat strings. My grandmother told me when I was a very young girl, you find the smartest person in the room and you ride their coattails. And I've been riding your coattails. I'm gonna ride till the wheels fall off.
Yeah,
So
I'm riding yours too, Baba. I'm not I'm riding yours too. I mean, so talk about unsung, right? So I don't want so I'm so not really great at receiving, and I really thank you for that, because we do this work because we do this till we're free, right? There's a book. Marion Kaba wrote a book, an abolitionist book called "We Do This Till We Free Us." We free us, right? And that's the true motivation. It's never about any one person. And as you guys know, as hard as we work, right? Like, better to know that you have your blood, sweat, and tears. This is group work. This is teamwork. This is our work. because no one's gonna come save us but us, right? So I want to transition because we are just one drop by drop water breaks the rock, right? And there's so many other great caregivers, other great mothers. I want to degenderize mothering. I think mothering is in a league of its own, but we could talk about that later, especially when we get into our conversation about autism. So thank you so much, Fari and Renee. I'm gonna pull you guys out and then pull up Carla and Sheila as I'm saying this because I'm figuring this all out. If it drops you, just know that please come back. I want you guys here. I'm gonna pull you guys up in a minute. And here is Carla. Hopefully Sheila will come back. And so looking forward to this conversation. Now, what folks don't know, everything that Fari just said, before I even had a thought to think about, okay, it's time to do more in the community, which is what led to Chi Born Free, which is what has led to FixPat. I mean, Carla would walk me off, talk me off, walk me off, come and nurture me. I mean, talk about mothering me. Carla has seen me in panic attacks. Carla has seen me in any state that I have been in. She has seen me naked and has been there and has loved me. And so this is a love fest. So thank you for starting that, Fari. And so while we're going to be talking about literacy, I just want to give Carla your flowers. Talk about unsung, the way that you anchor in on those of us in the underground railroad of our mothering journeys so that we don't fall apart, so that we don't stay broken, that we get back up and we stay in the fight. And you're such a silent warrior that we're not going to keep you silent because we're going to give you the space for your voice and your advocacy, and you're efficient. Carla is a soldier. I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to let Carla break down now. So what I want to maybe start with, so Carla, you've been part of NAMI, right?
Yes.
Right, in terms of mental health. I forget what NAMI stands for. Can you remind me what NAMI stands for?
National Alliance on Mental Illness.
National Alliance of Mental Illness, and also co-founder of Decoding Dyslexia DC. Can you tell us a bit about like your journey in decoding dyslexia, how we get to this landmark groundbreaking legislation, right, for literacy? I mean, because I'm sure that wasn't easy, right? Can you tell us the story of that, how you've come to the dyslexia work?
Well, I have been doing special education disability advocacy for about 20 years, starting when one of my kids was diagnosed with a disability. And one of my co-founders, Sheila Carr, hopefully she'll come back before we finish. I'll never forget, my child had just been diagnosed. I didn't know what I was doing. And we had found a class, and the principal said, "We don't want your child. We don't want kids like that." So I called Sheila, and she was like, "Okay." And she came and picked me up. And see that down 20 years ago, you could drive up to central office. She drove me down to central office. We went upstairs and asked for the head of special ed and talked to him. And that was when I first knew, the power of this kind of work. So after that, I started working with Sheila on special ed advocacy. And I'm going to speak for Sheila since she's not here. Sheila has dyslexia, runs in her family. She has dyslexia. Her daughter has dyslexia. A couple of her grandkids have dyslexia. So dyslexia does not run in my family, but all along, I was working with Sheila, helping her help her grandkids. And so I came to some understanding of dyslexia. And myself, over the years, I've gotten a lot of training in special education, but almost none of it was in DC. So I decided that my mission was to help to create organizations, special ed organizations in the city, so that we don't have to leave to gain knowledge. So I have been trying to get Sheila to start a Decoding Dyslexia chapter for a long time. And then we actually went to the Decoding Dyslexia Maryland conference in Annapolis, and we met a woman named Lori Maloney. Lori is actually a white woman, and we were talking to her, and she mentioned that she had spoken to another woman whose name is Jen Hosfield, who's also white. She's a Ward 3 member, resident. And so we all wanted to form the organization, so we got together. So it's 3 years now, 3 years ago, and that's how we came to form Decoding Dyslexia.
Wow, I didn't know that origin story. So if you want to stick around when we talk about autism, I know you're part of that family, right? Like that.
Yeah.
Intrinsically, would love to have you stick around for that. But how did it get to the place where there's legislation now that says, hey, we got to honor literacy for dyslexic kids and, you know, other children that need those reading interventions? Say more.
Well, you know, sometimes the stars align. It doesn't happen that much, but they did. It happened that Councilmember Todd had proposed dyslexia legislation like 4 or 5 times, 4 or 5 years.
What? Do you know why he did that? Is he part of our neurodivergent space?
I think that someone in his family had dyslexia.
Okay.
And so he had put it forth and it never went anywhere. But this time when he put it forth, we came. And so we started pushing for the legislation, meeting with all the council people, actually telling them what was needed, talking to them about the science of reading, which is the foundation of the legislation. And then we were very lucky that Phil Mendelssohn became a champion for us. And
oh, really?
Yes, okay. He became a champion for the legislation.
Does he have, do you know any of the council members' stories?
No, I don't know whether he has a connection to dyslexia. I know that one of his staff members did, and I don't know if that's what moved him or what it was, but he was and still is a huge literacy advocate, and he was instrumental in getting this push forward. We worked in the council, the charter schools were involved, OSSI was involved, DCPS was involved. It was very difficult because, and it's funny, it appears that the charter schools did want the legislation and DCPS and OSSI did not want the legislation. So we
and
really
why
had,
not? What's the why not?
To be honest with you, I mean, I can't say because they never actually said, but my thinking was they really didn't want to be told what to do. You know, that's a problem that we have is, you know, we can suggest, but they never actually have to do. And if we actually have legislation, they're required to do it. Although now we're trying to put together a plan for implementation. So, because now that it's passed, we got to make sure they implement it and implement it properly. But it's going to take a lot. We're working right now to coordinate with the Charter School Alliance to try to come up with a plan to make sure that all the schools are prepared for the legislation when they're actually supposed to implement the science of reading for all the kids. Would you like to tell me what it is, what the law is?
Yeah, please say about the law and what it means to implement it.
Okay, so it's called Addressing Reading and Dyslexia, I think that's what the short title is, but it's Law 23-191. So it's going to be in stages. We had to get it passed and then we had to get it funded. We had to get $10 million to fully fund it, and we did get the $10 million. And so it's implemented over 3 years. This year, OSSI should have hired by now. The last time we talked to them, they were onboarding the person to develop training for teachers, because all teachers will have a dyslexia awareness training. And then a smaller percentage of teachers will get, like the K through 2, second grade teachers will get training on the science of reading. And the science of reading, it's a particular way to teach reading. It's not a reading company. Like there are lots of companies that have curriculum based on the science of reading, but it's basically structured literacy, meaning that reading should be taught in certain steps. And if you miss parts of it, the kids are going to have holes. In a nutshell, what we're teaching, the way we're teaching kids right now, we're not teaching them to decode. We're teaching them something called cueing, in which they basically guess. So like they look at the picture or try to figure it out from the context.
Sight words, right? Isn't that what they call it? Sight
A
words.
lot of sight words, but after a while that runs out. It doesn't meet your needs when the demands of reading increase. And so that's what's happening to our kids. We're ending up with a lot of people who are basically functionally illiterate. They can read some, but really not enough to function in the world and take care of the things that they need. So the first part is a training. So then this coming school year, the teachers are supposed to get trained. And then the third school year, they're going to screen kids K to second for reading problems, including dyslexia. And if they have dyslexia, they'll receive a specific intervention for dyslexia. And then all schools have to adopt a science of reading based curriculum and teach reading that way. OSSI is going to have a recommended list of curriculums. And if you don't choose one of their recommended, you have to defend that decision. And then yearly, they have to do a report that says, I think it's July that it's due, saying how the kids are doing in reading. So one of the things also that we have to advocate for this year is what happens, if people don't do what they're supposed to do. So there's still a lot of work left to do to make sure things work. And the motivation wasn't just about students with dyslexia. It was to address the fact that only 37% of DCPS and charter school students are proficient. That's in all of the
Say that
cities.
again.
Only 37% of all public school students in the city are proficient. 60% of our kids are not proficient in reading.
Whoa.
So, it's critical.
Yeah.
It's critical. And another thing we're trying to figure out is how to address the kids who are not going to benefit from the legislation, because it's an early childhood kind of legislation. But we have lots of kids in the pipeline. So we need to address those needs. And we've also been approached by adults. So we're trying to look into that as well.
Somewhat. So that leads me, to this. Constantly, I'm knee deep in the school-based behavioral health, school-based mental health work. And a key part of, my interest is consistently around ensuring that whatever we're doing, it's family centered, that we're not treating our children like they just dropped from the wilderness and, and are entering these buildings unattached, disconnected from an origin story, a story that that really sees them whole. We say the whole child, but somehow we can't really see the generational connections.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of parents are also dealing with major mental health issues and needing to confront it. I know for me, I only had the courage to deal with my lifelong struggle with anxiety and depression and really the past and the PTSD that informs that when I became a mother. So where do you see opportunities within the literacy within this literacy advocacy where there is a 2-generational approach? Can parents who have low literacy, can they participate and increase their literacy with their children? Do you see opportunities for that? Does the law allow for that? Or can schools begin to do that? What do you think of that?
The law doesn't contemplate that at all. It's completely school-based. I don't see any reason why that's not possible. But right now, it's bifurcated in the city. Everything, adult literacy programs and children's literacy programs are separated. I mean, I think it's a great idea. I think it's a wonderful idea to think about. But no, we have not addressed that at all.
Well, I'm glad you think it's a great idea. So consider yourself recruited for this project. Right? I mean, as the one who has laid down an important step here, we do want to curate in terms of FixPat, in terms of our advisory, our JEDI programming. JEDI stands for Justice, Equity, Diversity, and our diversity we're most concerned with is neurodiversity and inclusion. And so we're looking to curate books and that kind of speak to that two generation, or at least speak to, you know, a parent and a child. Maybe it's two steps, maybe it's one, and just what literature is out there, what programs are out there, and how can we form relationships with school communities to ensure that they're also using literacy as a family engagement strategy, not just, you know, the metrics. And we want all of that, the assessments, we want the numbers, right? But we also want the culture. We don't want to shame anybody. We want everyone to feel like it is a safe place to say, hey, I need support. And I think maybe it
Yeah.
starts there, right? Maybe.
Yeah, and I think particularly as you say that with dyslexia and autism as well, dyslexia often is, and dyslexia, I mean, autism can be generational. Like I talked about Sheila, and they're running through generation after generation in families. And I know in autism, there are lots of stories about a parent finding out they have autism after their child is diagnosed. And I've heard parents of kids with dyslexia, like a mom saying, my kid is dyslexic, and now I'm wondering about my husband. Is that what it is? So when the kids get diagnosed, a lot of time it opens the door for parents to address things they've been wondering about.
Yeah, I mean, we're just coming out of this journey where we know that schools and other centers can weaponize things against parents, can use a weakness like not knowing how to read completely, not knowing how to read your procedural safeguards. They just toss at you, right? These can be stifling and disabling things, right? How can we create a culture where we can be allowed to be imperfect, right? We can be allowed to not know how to read and have the spaces that help us learn. How do we do that?
Well, I think it's a huge issue. And basically, in the American culture, if you can't speak well, it's a sign of lack of intelligence. And then secondarily, if you can't read, and third, if you can't write, those are all screeners for intelligence. And I think that on all kinds of levels, because it impacts people who don't communicate in the traditional ways that most of us communicate. There could be somebody who's deaf or is non-speaking for some other reason. And we don't even have ways to be able to assess their intelligence because the tests that we use are language-based. So it's a huge issue. It's a huge issue.
And I'm going through that, with my twice exceptional, struggling with speech. But I mean, I don't know if anyone taught him to read. Like, he just comes out, and then the other child, really struggling, as gifted and talented as he is. So kind of catching, different sides of the spectrum, and how even my youngest Jedi, he's super intelligent, but it's the best kept secret, right? And, and if the schools aren't invested in him, goodness, right? Well, we're going to make sure that doesn't happen. Jedi, not my child. You can't have him.
I think about Stephen Hawking a lot because his excellence was, made, put out for you to see before it got locked inside. People went through hell and high water to access it. But we have so many people who didn't get a chance to show what they know. It was locked in, and people assume it's not there. So We don't even get communication devices, augmented communication devices, or things like that are needed in order for the kids to be able to communicate and show. I just think we've wasted so much knowledge and intelligence that we haven't accessed because we assume because people can't communicate that they lack intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we want to unpack this even more. I hope you stick around
Yeah.
for the autism conversation. And but how can people follow you? How can people learn more? How can they plug in to Decoding Dyslexia?
Okay, so we have a website, decodingdyslexiadc.org. My phone number, on the website, it has a phone number on it, and I can't remember the phone number, but it's on the website. I'll look it up and put it in the chat. But we also are on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, if you want to follow us there.
Okay.
And if you go to the website, you can, or if you email, I'll put the email in. If you go to the website or email, you can get on our listserv, and we'll send out communications when we have meetings, etc.
Yeah, if you put it in the chat, I can lift it up and input
Okay.
so folks can follow. So thank you so much, Carla. We're gonna transition to some creative sharing. This is a party after all, right? So I hope you're ready, Lindsay and Claudia, and you guys on here. And whenever you can, if you can, please come in. I was like, I'm not. Am I feeling creative? I haven't. Poet is my first identity. I don't even know if we've even had this conversation, Claudia, right? But I think part of like my pull to you is like, oh my gosh, you not only are you an amazing organizer, like you so easily and gracefully and just have such just a beautiful voice and powerful language, and so yeah, you inspire me. So hopefully, maybe I need to warm up to my poetry here. But the floor is yours, Claudia. And Lindsay, if you want to share a poem, happy to have you do so. Claudia. Oh,
Hi, everyone. So I'm very excited to be here. I was listening into the conversation. I am a first generation college student, although, I've pretty much have done a lot of college, so I'm really done. I did a grad program last year, graduated with a Master of Fine Arts and Creative Writing. So I am really tired of school. At one point, I really loved school, and life happens. But I was going to tell Chioma, it's the thing with poetry. You're always a poet. Like once a poet, always a poet. Like that's definitely my belief. I was mentored by a teaching artist when I started high school, and his name is Jonathan B. Tucker, and he also goes back and forth between doing poetry and doing youth activist work. And I always tell him that too, Jonathan, you're always going to be a poet. Just because it's something that doesn't leave us. It's part of who we are. So I wanted to share 2 poems today. The first poem I want to share, and you can also read more of my poetry if you go to my website at claudiapoet.com. The poem that I'm going to read right now, like this is not available on my website. It's a poem that I was inspired to create very recently. And I also have a poem on my website that I will read. Both of the poems that I want to share today are called sestinas, and sestinas are a really wonderful form. In poetry, you have free verse, which is like it doesn't follow any structure, and then you have a fixed form, which follows a certain structure. It follows repetition. It follows a certain rhyme scheme. And I like to work with all kinds of forms, but fixed poetry is something that has really helped me and feel empowered because I hold different marginalized identities. I am an immigrant woman. I'm an immigrant woman with a particular work permit, so I don't have citizenship or permanent residency, and like that in the past has presented its limits, and I have to push past those limits And English is not my first language, although it definitely feels like my first language. I'm much more comfortable in English than Spanish. So like those are some things that I've had to work through. And with the poems that I want to share, the Sestinas is a form that has 6 lines. It has 6 words that repeat. So there's a lot of repetition in there. But the way that it works, it really is this story arc. It's telling you a story, and sometimes it's because those stories are patterns. I come from Central American background, and in El Salvador, where I was born, there's a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of stories between, like gender violence between men and women that get repeated. So sometimes, like that comes into my poetry because it is part of where I come from. But I'm also working against those, like I have to acknowledge these are part of like my history, my culture's history, and who I am. So there is a lot of repetition in the Sestina form, and I I try to work with it and against it. So the first poem I'm going to read is called "On Growing Anything in a One-Bedroom Apartment." Under my roof, I've seen green life arrive at an ending to its story. My mom was gifted a basil plant once. We had dreams for its condition, the multiple uses in the kitchen. Soon the stems dried and the leaves yellowed, and though I've seen death in small rose bushes, the scene was unexpected. I have kept seeds in soil for months, and sometimes several seedlings arise. Too thin, they lean and shrink. What an injustice. Was it not enough or too much water or sunlight? What just proportions was it would save these plants? I opened ancient history. Maybe it was the soil or the temperature, those times with too many unknowns. With my income, I can't create ideal plant conditions like an apartment with a balcony or a ground floor. I miss the scent of green. I've said goodbye to cactus and succulents. I've clipped pathos leaves and praised the growth of roots and the tint of a new leaf. My bean plants were born without my attention, a quiet justice, out of the soil, out of the seed coat, extraordinary and sensational, a cotyledon, a seedling shaped like a question mark for all the stories that end without closure. Finally, a miracle in my room. Conditions that merit growth within hours. I tracked the beans at every free moment. At one point, 6 bean plants at 12 inches, so thin, the times became less promising. Winter arrived. I worried. By December, leaves and stems dried. One plant remains. No amount of unconditional care will be enough. The last one standing can lose. To justify this destiny, it was never about how much the plant desired to be a part of a story, or how much I desired life for the plant. I can't manifest in a firm sense until plants living in an unforgiving environment. It makes no sense. Apply this another way, and one can picture how monumental numbers of Black, brown, and indigenous people are dead or dying, story after story. I'm reading a self-help book right now about how one leaves behind poverty. All I have to do is manifest. Think like a rich person, just like that. I can't be the only person noticing the success is at times conditional. White, male, not so much to manifest, but to condition yourself to grab without consent, to take no as nonsense. Did you hear a man built a yacht so big he's requesting adjustment to an ancient bridge to accommodate the departure date? For the record, I pray that yacht becomes a mangrove, never leaving, because it's about time a new class of people shape the Earth's history. I want the record to record accurately and reflect the conditions. I try it every time. Green appeared in my everyday scenes, and even when it leaves, I am trying to transform into a verb for a story that's mine. So since writing that poem, my pathos I planted them, so they are growing a lot more. My bean plants did die, as the poem mentions, but the repetition that's happening here is really about like wanting those ideal conditions, and here talking about equity, like wanting those ideal conditions when you don't have them, like when people tell you just have to work harder, but it's not just about that. It's like what's like what are the things people are giving you, what resources and what barriers you have. So to wrap up, I want to read one more poem. This poem is called Nutrition. And this is a poem that is very dear to me because it's so many years old. It was published in a magazine in 2017, but I think I wrote it a couple years before that. And this is also a Sistina letter of petition, and this one honors my mom and really honors books and just like the love that I had growing up and that I still do. But after grad school, it's kind of really hard to like ease back into it, but I still love books. So nutrition goes like this. Because I felt up the smooth spine of books with the caress of my finger, and I passed time under the hold of a good book, I know my mother. When I was 7, I learned about stone soup from hungry soldiers in an audiobook. And you wouldn't believe how the stomach thinks in hunger. My mother grew up and lived against a menu of hunger, and her Bible was the mountain peak to a pile of books. She stopped going to church, but she said to me, "You have to believe." I was 15 the first time a pastor's preaching made my tears collect like soup in a falling bowl. I have seen my mother cry. Don't think that I learned about my mother from the stuff in books. It is the hunger for our history that has instilled a craving for soup. Though I also wanted the lives pictured in books. The characters in my books didn't keep time. Each time we would move, I must tell you, I packed my books first. I can never tell you what worlds we've known except that my mother has a big family rooted in disjointed land and time. When I was 2, my mother would go hungry so that I would have bread. We have bread and books now. Each book is a vegetable soup brewing. When I was 10, my mother portioned soup. She would say, "Come eat. Books will not feed you." When I was 16, I saw the world within books and beneath my feet. When she was 16, my mother wanted the chickens to lay eggs. We were hungry. Don't you know, books belong to people with time. My mother would never say this. She's waited on time, waited for the soldiers to teach me about stone soup. I've picked up a different kind of hunger, a fistful of work. I don't know how time kisses you, mothers like you. I think of you, my mother, and the days we opened the pages in library books. This is why in hunger, the world will taste to you like history, like our history. I keep canned soup in my mother's cabinets, and in our home, enough books. So that's the end of that poem. For like my mom, she only had the opportunity to go up to second grade. When she was in El Salvador, she had about 7 other siblings. She had a lot of responsibilities. She had me when she was very young. So even without that, she would still take me to the library. So I vividly remember just going with her, taking a walk, going to like, these were the days of audio, like cassettes. So, we would take an audio cassette, we would play it. I would listen to it both in English and Spanish. And, with whatever like she could, she would always try to make sure that I would succeed with like the little that she had. She would make sure I would have that. And then to her goal for me was always to make sure that I would read more and do well in school. And I did my best to make sure that I could fulfill those needs, because she's also a storyteller and always has been a storyteller. So I grew up with that. So yeah, I'm very excited to hear any other poets in the room, and I'm also super excited for the unboxing. I'm so excited to see that.
Yeah. So have you heard the saying, we are our ancestors' wildest dreams? And shout out to Harriet's Wildest Dreams, which is an organization that kind of embodies that quote. Uh, you've heard of that?
I think I've heard it a few times, but not like the way that you phrased it. But I love that quote.
Yeah, well, I see the beauty of that, particularly the second piece and the homage to mother. And mother is really not just about one body, it's all the bodies that make that body. We capture so much, in our wombs, right? They are historic cauldrons, right? And so like I mean, just hearing some of your mother's story, clearly you are a dreamt up descendant and just a dream child. And I love you dearly, and we all do, especially our Coma Project team. Like, where would we be without cool, calm Claudia keeping us in check? Who is a brilliant, who is motivated by the most beautiful thing in the world, which is poetry. Anyway, so thank you for that, Lindsay. I know I'm gonna vicariously go through you in terms of sharing. Maybe after you, I may feel like sharing something. I don't know. We'll see. But I want to. Are you ready? Not yet.
I was, but I know I have people in the kitchen. Okay, so I'm cooking, and I'm hi Michelle. I don't know because I'm cooking. All right, I'm very sorry. I'm going to share this mini zine I made. I've started making zines over the past few years. I have only made a few. They're basically like mini cartoons or like comic books. Various things. And so this one, where am I gonna go to do this? Is one I made when I was at a meeting with PAVE. I'm a member of a PLE board, Parent Leaders Board, for the Parents Amplifying Voices in Education, and I decided to make a zine about what we were talking about in the meeting. And so this was the cover. I basically just took a piece of paper and I just started drawing. And so one of the things that I wrote in here, so I'll just read it to you. So the first page says, this first part is about getting more money for out of school time. So it says, can we get more money, and then it says right there, money equals seats, and more kids for out of school programs. DPR, which is the Department of Parks and Rec, fills up fast. And then on the other side, it says, can we get an activity catalog of all DC Parks and Rec and OST activities across the district, like PG County does. They have this fantastic catalog of all the activities. And then I wrote right here, can we get in-person registration for access for people without good internet, like booths in every ward at rec centers, so to make that more accessible. So then the next part I talked about is mental health. Now about mental health, can we support the whole child? Not only the version of the child who shows up at school, because just because they aren't quote unquote causing problems doesn't mean they aren't struggling inside. And then accountability and transparency. How are the district and LEAs spending and implementing the money? So this is just an example. I don't know. This is a way of trying to turn in some advocacy into, I don't know, something artsy and creative, something that just kind of grew out.
Yeah, don't talk it down. I mean, that is crazy creative. Are you kidding me? And it is, like, again, this whole literacy conversation, right? I mean, poetry is literacy, and poetry is not just about format or structure. It's about a way of being, and I love that. And is there a way that folks can get a copy of that, of the zines? I know you make multiple zines. How can we get some zines?
I don't have them all anywhere. I need to figure that out. I think this is on Twitter somewhere, but I'll find it. I'll put it out somewhere. I guess I need to work on that. But yeah, I love this image. I just love this. Can we please?
Please.
The whole
I mean, that looks like that should be a poster. Like, can we do that? Can we blow that up, circulate that, do some guerrilla art with that? Why not? No, I love it. Seriously, it's wonderful. So I will share one poem. Well, it's not really a poem. It's more like a song. And there was a time in my life that somehow I mean, I'm a classically trained. I don't want to exaggerate my my poetic background here, but I am, like, I guess, classically trained. I did, I had creative writing minor for my first degree. I don't have an MFA, but I've gone through some academic learning. But something in me, like in my 20s, when I left, when I entered the world, so let me say that, I started thinking more like in song. right? And so I'd write it in poetry, but it would also come with like a hook, right? Or like a thing. And so there are like these series of poems that I have not done anything with, because I think the spirit of them are not just verbal or written, or they're really oral, right? Orally delivered in the spirit of the griots, the African griots. So this is about spring. The name of the poem is Springtime. I probably remember a good 50% of the poem, so we're gonna give you the 50% I remember. And I was born on the first day of spring. Those who know me know that it's a little traumatic being born on the first day of spring, because chaos happens at that vernal equinox. But we are, I think, starting to feel the beauty of spring. So this is called Springtime, and it's a song, and I'm not a singer, so I just want to give that. So I'm kind of a poet, sort of a poet, and sort of a singer, I guess. So I'm just going to share this with you guys. So it's again called Springtime. Springtime is being times and happy times and freeing times. Springtime is growing. Springtime is that knowing time that got you in and out of grinds. Springtime is that nagging feeling in your spine. Springtime is the meditation birthing rhymes. Springtime is flowing. Springtime is my time and your time and we time. Springtime is showing. That's all I remember. So it's springtime, and I'm sure somebody with a better melody could probably do it better justice. um, and we're going to move into our next section here, which is the unboxing. Drum roll, please. So Lindsay, I hope you're ready to come back. I know there was a lot of stuff. When I see your camera on, I'll bring you back up, Lindsay. But we want to start with Aquia. And by the way, shout out to Aquia, who is, one of the 10 is it graduates? One of the 10 newly sharpened political education caregivers, politically educated caregivers that as part of the cohort. Would love to, after the unboxing, we talked a bit earlier about like summing up how we felt about it. Would love to get, your thoughts on how you felt about it being a participant. But, I had this idea to hand deliver the care packages. So every member of the cohort received a care package. And I was like, you know what? We're in the same city. I'm just gonna drive through this town and drop it off at people's homes. That was the most logistically unsound thought in my brain, because I literally made it to one house, right? And that one house was a quiz, and I happened to have a box for our NeuroMama Baby Bump Box, along with the NeuroMama bag. And I'm gonna, if I can figure out how to stop my background here so you guys can see. I put the background in case my kids come tumbling in, but there you go. So you can do the unbagging and the unboxing, Aquia.
Okay, Chioma. And I love the poem, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
So
Very
I
rusty, very rusty.
already did a little bit of unbagging, but we can revisit what I took out of the bag that I've been anxious to use all week. So I'm excited that today is the big day. But we received a lovely silk pillowcase. I believe it's called a Ravmix, or from Ravmix, which I'm holding here. And then we also received mini diffusers, which are really cool. I can't wait to use this, along with, I believe we received some different oils to go inside of our diffusers. We have a variety of oils here. And
Yeah,
then
I'd
we
like to
also,
get your feedback on the if you like the scent. So love to get
I
that.
love them even from outside of the packaging. So I can't wait to tell you which are my favorite. I think I'm gonna use this at my day job so I can relax while I'm working. And then also at home. And then we also have some really nice branded notebooks here, as well as something else that I'm really excited about, which is like a fidget, it looks like a fortune teller fidget with different illusions.
Yeah, everybody got a different sensory toy, and that's one of the sensory toys.
Mm. And a beautiful lilac ink pen, as well as our manual for the DC Special Education 101 um, program, which has multiple tabs of information. And then if we go over a little further, we have our box here. If
Wow,
you
you're
want
good
to,
at this, Aquia. This is like I want you to come back and unbox some more things. This is great.
sure, because I've never done this before, so I'm glad it's working out. And I have a little assistant here who's going to help me pry this open. Ooh, oh, this looks cool. Okay, you want to hand me something? Want to start? So we have a board book by the name of Clap Your Hands.
So I want to say shout out again to Dr. Faith Gibson Hubbard, who donated a box of books. Every box from the NeuroMama Baby Bump Box has a donated book as our first start in promoting literacy. So that's one of the books. You got the clap your hands.
And this is perfect. I have a 2-year-old, so he'll like that. And then we have a beautiful mask.
Yeah, from Ghana, by the way. So Africa Good Nest, who was
Ooh.
our partner in the boxes, folks can go and purchase a box. I don't know, Claudia, if you could drop the link in the chat, then I can pull up the. Oh, there you go. I think thank you. I think Claudia, you beat me to the punch. So I'm gonna show that. Get your own box at africagoodness.com. You can get the NeuroMama Baby Bump Box that Aquia is unloading. Each one has a different mask from West African prints, and that's one. Yeah.
Wow, my father was from Ghana, so I'm definitely wearing this.
Oh.
And then we have some delicious dried pineapple slices.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll enjoy these,
Yum,
in
yum, yum.
addition to some tiger nut bites or granola bites.
Yes, all these are natural products. They're made from agriculturalists or farmers in Ghana. So yeah,
And we also have some mango slices, some dried mango slices.
I loved the mango. I've tried it. It's great. Can't wait to get your feedback on it.
Oh, yes. My assistant is trying to slide those her way, but we're going to put them back over here on the side. And then we also have, I believe it's pawpaw. Is that?
Well, I mean, so what do we call it here? We call it pawpaw. Gosh, I'm losing. Anyone know what pawpaw is? That we call it in the U.S. It's great potassium in
Is it
that.
like papaya?
Papaya. So I lost I was like, I saw pawpaw. That's my West African mind. I forgot what it was like in the rest of. So yes, papaya. That's the word. It's papaya.
Okay. My assistant gets the credit for that. And then we have some dried banana slices also. They look really good as well. And then we're going to share our last bit of dried fruit or snacks, rather. And these are super fruits. along with some ginger, and there are also granola bites.
Yes.
All right. And then to
There's some
turn a new
spirulina.
page,
Oh, yes. So
this,
it's a lotion. It looks like a soap, but it's a lotion.
mhm.
Can't wait to get your feedback again. All African products, and shout out to the company that does that. That's a mother's hands that makes those natural beauty products. And I've been trying the other one, the black soap that's in the face. That should be in there, and I love it. It's like I'm
Mm,
plotting how I can get more of it for my.
yes. Okay. Oh, and will go back. Actually, we also have some coconut or cocoa cashew coconut chews or granola bites. So this is also another combination fruit here for snack there. And now we will go back to another body product, and we have some face wash here.
So that's the one that I just love, Dr. Bates. So that's a mama who developed a mother who developed the skincare line after she had a bad breakout postpartum. That's why it's for maternal health, but I use it. I'm not pregnant, don't plan, never going to be again. And it was great for me. So highly, highly recommend particularly that. And I wanted to test it out for a while before distributing, and I love it. Love it. And I think there's some spirulina in there.
Yes, that's actually what we picked up next.
Oh, I love spirulina. So a lot of just natural chlorophyll, for those of us that may not be getting all our greens or maybe getting our greens and just needing to spike up. Chlorophyll is like a great natural mineral that spirulina is heavy in some iron. Spirulina is good stuff for those of us who have been living the vegan life. I mean, I used to, I don't now. And I, hopefully one day will. So I'd love to know, the aftermath. Thank you so much for that unboxing. But in the box
Sure.
is also like materials for FixPat, and we talk about and Africa Goodness. Is that Africa Goodness? Let me put you back on the
Hmm.
spotlight here so I can't see what's.
So this is the African Goodness one.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to Africa Goodness. Shout out to Bernice, who's probably sleeping now. Right. So those are our Jedi programs that we hope to kick off this next few years, this year and the next. And as if you didn't need any other stickers, right? Like just some FixPat stickers. So
They always work in our house.
yay. And we want your feedback. So that's the feedback form. So anyone who does purchase, if you want to pick up a box, please go to Africa Goodness. You'll see the NeuroMama Baby Bump Box on there, just as it says in that link. And this is our QVC moment, right? And we're gonna transition. Oh my gosh, this took longer than programmed, but thank you so much, Akuya. And I figured there was a Ghana relations there with the name, but
Yes.
yeah. So shout out to West Africa. So I'm gonna pull up, and I'm so sorry for the belabored, our Autism Acceptance Month. Anyone else that wants to come on and talk autism acceptance, please come on. I'm going to hide that. Oh gosh, I hope you guys are ready. Are you there? Lydia, are you there? Hey, Renee, Fari, I'm going to bring you back up. Anyone else that wants to come on, please just say in the little private chat and I'll bring you up. Or maybe if Renee and Fari aren't on yet, I'm just going to remove them. And when you come back, Renee and Fari, just turn on your cameras. Um, And yeah, my internet sucks right now. So this is first of all, Lydia, you don't know this, but I am a huge fan girl. I've been watching all your YouTube videos. And then Renee, oh there's Renee. Renee put it together that you are also autistic, Hoya. So I've also seen some of your blogging, and so just really, really honored. So shout out to Chris who's not here, and Ramadan Mubarak. Gosh, I'm so bad. What is the greeting? How do you say Happy Ramadan?
You can say Ramadan Mubarak or Ramadan Kareem.
So right. So Ramadan Mubarak and Ramadan Kareem. I know that Chris is observing. Chris at Servia City. One of our great partners, connected us with Lydia, and just really, really honored to have you join us here because, again, anyone just check out Lydia. I mean, like real deal Holyfield, breaking down so much about how much, not just about being autistic, but just the power of being disabled and the power of the disability justice movement, which I would want to maybe can we start there? Can we start unpacking the difference between disability rights and disability justice? And so, yeah, Lydia, I want you to kick us off. And so Renee, is also an autistic self-advocate. I'm a mother of two autistic sons. Carla's also mothering autistic, and I have my own neurodiversities, autism. I'm not autistic, but I feel like somewhere on that spectrum sometimes, with my own neurodiversities. But can you start with telling us like your thoughts on disability justice versus disability rights? What's the difference?
This is Lydia. Thanks for the invite, and glad I was able to join you, even if a little bit last minute. That's the way that we all tend to run on Crip Standard Time. My name, as you mentioned, is Lydia. My pronouns are they, them. I'm a youngish East Asian person with short black and teal hair, wearing glasses, a dark zip up, and behind me there's a blurred set of shelves that you all don't see my ADD mess over here. I spend a lot of time thinking about what the differences are between disability justice and disability rights. And essentially, it breaks down in recognizing that the disability rights movement has been largely white dominant, white centered on wealth privileged citizens, settlers. And that the disability rights movement has primarily functioned to advocate for changing the societal position of disabled people by advocating for laws and policies. And the disability rights movement has won some incredibly important victories that continue to shape our lives today. The passage of what is now the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and the Rehabilitation Act, both in 1973. The passage of the Developmental Disabilities Bill of Rights and Assistance Act in the 1980s. The Americans with Disabilities Act, passed in 1990, and its Amendments Act, passed in 2008, and Olmstead VLC, the Supreme Court case marking a landmark shift from widespread institutionalization to a legal mandate for community integration, have been important victories for our community that come out of the disability rights movement. But we also know that disabled people, and especially multiply marginalized disabled people, continue to face absurdly high rates of homelessness, unemployment, precarious employment, criminalization, incarceration, medical discrimination, and death. Because of the nexus of ableism with other forms of domination and oppression, how ableism works alongside white supremacy and settler colonialism and patriarchy and classism and imperialism. And the disability rights movement does not know what to do with that. The disability rights movement does not understand how intersectional the experience and violence of ableism is, and therefore how intersectional work to resist, transform, and end ableism is our future. Disability justice goes far beyond and expands past disability rights. Disability justice recognizes that while work to advocate for changes in law and policy is necessary work, it is also insufficient work on its own. The disability justice framework was co-created between 2005 and 2006 by a coalition largely of Black and Brown and queer and trans disabled people. And it was created as a deliberately consciously intersectional framework and practice for working toward disability liberation and building and sustaining communities of care.
Yes. I mean, I'm like, okay, first of all, gotta have you back and on a one-on-one. When we just, I don't know if you picked up, we described, we ran a political education boot camp for caregivers that are neurodivergent and are raising neurodivergent children. So we're two generations of varying conditions raising our children, and we know that there are things that disable beyond diagnosis, that they're disabling factors. I feel like disability justice also broadens the scope, um, in terms of what disables and why it's a strong identifier, like race, like the genders, the many genders that we can identify with, like geography. So, can you say a bit how you identify as a neurodivergent person, and maybe some of your story? Do you identify as autistic? This is and while we talk about the difference, I'm gonna throw these. This is just me throwing, not trained journalist at all. Things I want to know from you that I've heard. I feel like I've been having conversations with you for a long time, listening to just you break these concepts down. But can you say how you identify and um, within the disability space, and the difference between autism awareness and autism acceptance, and if there is some other variation that we should be aware of, that we should be observing this month? Would love to hear more of your thoughts on that.
This is Lydia. I am autistic. I also have other disabilities, psych disabilities, cognitive disabilities that affect how my brain works. But primarily, I just say that I am disabled, and sometimes I say that I'm neurodivergent. And what that means to me is that my experience in the world and in the body mind that I inhabit is not one that is considered normal or typical by most of society. And some of my experiences of neurodivergence, are um, recognized, at least in some way, in broader society as, oh, that is a thing that exists. But all of my experiences of neurodivergence are nonetheless impacted by society's racist and ableist assumptions that, well, autism is a little white boy's thing, or ADHD is a little white boy's thing, or, any people of color, whether Black, Brown, Indigenous, Latina, or Asian people, we don't experience neurodivergence. That's a white people thing. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. I mean, we already know, just the four of us that are here right now, that in our communities, huge swaths of us are disabled, chronically ill, and neurodivergent. In fact, disability is more prevalent in every single marginalized community than it is in every analogously privileged one, if only because of the impacts of capitalist exploitation and unsafe, exploitative, extractive labor conditions, if only because of the impact of environmental racism in poisoning and sickening and crippling us, literally maiming, debilitating, harming, injuring, and traumatizing us collectively and multi-generationally. In all of our marginalized communities, there is a higher prevalence of disabilities, chronic illnesses, and neurodivergence than there is in every analogously privileged one. And not enough folks understand that, because even in BIPOC communities, a lot of people have internalized the belief that, well, talking about disability is just adopting a white framework. It's adopting the colonizer's framework. And that couldn't be further from the truth either.
That's so right. That's so right. That we do have to confront what that looks like, in the southern, south
The
BIPOC,
the
Black,
global
brown,
south.
Right. So Renee, do you want to jump in? What are your thoughts? Do you want to share your disability journey? Do you so I didn't disclose. I'm gonna disclose just to, hopefully make it safe for everyone. And sorry, Lydia, I know that you have disclosed in other settings, and sorry to just kind of jump in for that. And I hope that we are proud. And so I want to again shout out Diego Mariscal, who kind of really puts out like how we should be proud of our disability categories. And that's also been a motivator for me. So, I mean, I'm diagnosed PTSD, shows up as anxiety and depression. I'm a survivor of childhood rape, and that, has lent to, I'm pretty sure that even without that experience, I know I'm wired differently and I move differently in the world, and now proudly so, right? Now proudly so, and creating that space. So Renee, would love for you to, like, if you feel, if you want
I
to
just want
close
to.
more, or
Well, I
do you
just
have a
want.
question or a thought?
Well, I just have a comment that one of the things that Lydia now, I think I was introduced to Lydia by way of a flyer that was hanging in a common space at Georgetown University in 2013. So, Lydia, I've always tried to bring up the story whenever I have the option, the presence to be in your presence. But I just want to be really clear that if it hadn't been for a connection with Georgetown University, in the flyer that had your name and Ari Newman and a couple of other folks back in 2013, I probably would have not have come upon a way of this thinking about autism that truly, truly, truly represents the diversity that my children and I and my spouse represent as people who have a globalized sense of disability. In that my children's father and my partner is from West Africa. He's from Togo. So we have a mixed our medical backgrounds and our medical histories. Well, we'll never have a complete set of medical records for both sides of our family, simply by the fact that one of the members, my partner, my ex-husband, is from the global south. He's from a small country in West Africa called Togo, where instead of there being full representation for disability in a Western sense, disability represents itself in countries like Togo and countries all over the global south, West Africa, Middle East, Asia, South Asia, at all. A lot of times disability is represented by a statistic, and that's a global maternal morbidity and global statistics for childhood accidents and childhood death. What I'm trying to say is that the sense of disability as being a globalized societal issue, for me, really does come from the fact from some cold hard facts that so many people around the world don't live past the age of 2 with their disability. If it's a disability that is visible, that's impacts them intellectually, and could impact their ability to be perceived as having value in their country or in their society of origin. So again, I just wanted to only just illuminate that there's a global context for why we fight for these issues. There's a globalized context for how we can bring disability rights and disability justice to not just to us and the who happen to be living in this present body in the North or in the globalized West, but universal is disability rights as being a globalized universal human right. And then I'll leave it there. I'm not going to go into more. I don't want to take any more of this airtime because I think it's so precious to have us as women and as people of color and as people who are neurodiverse be in this live space, even if it's just for a few moments, that we can amplify our true diversity.
and as non-gender binary conforming, right? Like I feel like as I love the term caregiver. I love, one, thank you so much for that. Real, I mean, as a West African, as a Nigerian, first generation, American, there is a lot to unpack when we think about the global nature of this. I don't know if I'm personally yet ready for that. I know Lindsay, shout out to Lindsay who lifts that up regularly. Lindsay has a company, Sonara, which does, international development work, and there's a need for our voices on that plane to speak transnationally, right? Because we know this is ableism is a universal experience, right? But Carla, I'd love to hear more. Like, so we've talked about dyslexia, right? Decoding dyslexia. Shout out to that great monumental work. We have legislation on the book, but you're also on the autism journey. You're mothering an autistic child and other neurodivergent children. What does autism acceptance mean to you? And I really, I'm saying autism acceptance. I'm also seeing some people push back on autism acceptance. I never quite know. I can't keep up with disability Twitter. There's a lot of things going on disability Twitter. So I don't know if I take instructions from there, but definitely want to be in a learning space. It is important dialogue that comes up on disability Twitter. So I don't want to, discount that. It's just a lot from different directions, and it's, for my mind, I need to be able to filter, and it's hard to do that on Twitter. So I hope to pull more and more people that are articulating important things. ABA, oh gosh, can we, there's a whole nother conversation around ABA therapy. And I think there's one we will and should have, maybe not in our party, not in our community care party, and another platform. But Carla, what does this all mean to you? Do you mind sharing your story? Do you want to disclose your disability or your family's? And yeah.
I think acceptance is personal. And what I'm trying to navigate now is all of my kids are adults, and I think their story is their own. So as I advocate, I really try to sort of tiptoe through sharing their information, because it's their story and not mine. While I do believe that I'm an integral part, I have my own story in this adventure that I want to share and support other parents. But that's something, because I feel like it's for them to share, because they're adults, they're not kids, and it's for them to decide how much of their story that they want to share. So um, with respect to intersectionality, the thing that's very front and center for me is a diagnosis of women, and that it's far behind, and that women present differently and don't get diagnosed, and even that the assessments that we're currently using are not necessarily appropriate, that women are getting diagnosed with anxiety and depression, and things like that, instead of a proper diagnosis of autism. And I'm very interested in addressing that and seeing what we can do. I mean, and that doesn't get into whether that person is also of color. Um, but I think that's really important.
Yeah, again, those intersectional lens, right? So like gender, Renee, I know this is a big deal. Renee's daughter is a transition age youth who will soon be transitioning into the adult system. Is her daughter is autistic, and in how isolating that may be, because she's in a sea of mostly, cis male dominant environments through entire life. Like, so I mean, I don't know. Do you want to say something about that, Renee, Lydia? I'd love to hear what you guys think about particularly gender and autism.
I'm gonna popcorn it to Lydia.
This is Lydia. I mean, I mentioned it a few minutes ago, but the ways that we're trained to think about disability, which, many folks like Mia Mingus and Talila Lewis have named over and over again, are that we're primed to think about disability from a very privileged framework. And that's the same way that we're primed to think about every other marginalized identity, even within marginalized communities. We're taught that if we're talking about, for example, queer people, that there's an assumption that we mean wealth privileged, white, cisgender queer people, right? When we talk about poor people, there's an assumption that who is meant generally, unless specified, if you say poor people, there's an assumption that you mean, well, white poor people, straight poor people, Christian poor people. And the only exception to that is the anti-Blackness of the assumption that, oh, well, poor people is Black people. But generally, if you're talking about poor people as a political group, the assumption is, oh, that means white poor people, Christian poor people, and so on. And when folks name disabled people, right, similarly, the assumption is, well, we mean straight, white, Christian, cisgender, disabled people. That's who we mean. And that's true like in every other context. When people say Asian Americans, they're assuming that what you mean is Asian Americans who've gained US citizenship or at least have documented immigration status, light-skinned Asian Americans, East Asians specifically, and East Asians who are straight married and Christian or Christian adjacent. That's the assumption, right? That in any marginalized community, whoever we're describing is assumed to be the most privileged people within that marginalized community. And so it's not surprising that when we think about autism and gender, we're also primed to assume that not only is autism a category that applies just to white people, but it's a category that applies just to men. And that erases entirely the existence of non-binary autistic people and autistic women. And there are a lot of gender stereotypes along with racial stereotypes that come with access to diagnosis for autism. And, you know, there's a lot of resources about this available on the Autistic Women and Non-Binary Network website, awnetwork.org. And I would happily point you all to our website. And
I just signed up. I just signed up for that and just really excited to be on the mailing list for that. So, you know, we want to lift that up, please. We could put that in the chat.
We have events coming up. Our next event is coming up this week on Wednesday. I lead AWN's Liberating Webinar series. Our conversation this coming Wednesday is on cultural work, visual art, and disability justice. And then our next two events are addressing accountable. Oh, the one this week, I think I reversed that, is the one on accountable disability journalism. There's one on cultural work and visual art and disability justice. And then in May, we have an upcoming event on CRIP literature. And all of our webinars feature
CRIP literature. Back up. What? CRIP okay. So is that
disabled authors and disabled writers will be speaking. And so all of our webinars feature majority disabled BIPOC, and you can see the archive of our webinars on the website. We've addressed topics including abolition and public health, teaching our kids in school, and just so many other topics. And we'll be hosting webinars through the rest of the year.
Wow, that is amazing. We definitely want to follow that. And we definitely, so while we wrapped up our cohort for caregivers and political education, we aim for the community to keep growing, right? We want to stay in touch with the cohort members and filter them into other spaces to grow deeper in knowledge about the disability justice movement that we are part of, that we are witnessing grow, that it becomes really more of that. This is that moment where we can, I mean, I just look forward to the literature. So you said this is this Wednesday. What time on Wednesday? You're on mute.
Sorry, this is Lydia. Our Wednesday events are always at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, and our Sunday events are always at 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific. And those two times allow for people with different types of schedules to be able to participate in at least some of our events, depending on their week and what their schedule looks like. We also make available all of our past programming on our YouTube channel and our website. We are in the process of finalizing the uploads of the rest of last year's webinars now.
Yeah, and thank you so much for your time. And we definitely want to honor and stay in touch. I want to circle back and maybe have, want to have an event with with you, and so we'll circle back more about that. Thank you for joining us, Lydia, and Renee and Carla. If you guys want to stick around and just let's close out a little bit. I do believe, I don't know, Fari, do you want to come back up? Is Fari still there? Fari, if you're still here, turn your camera on. I'll bring you up. Um, you know, want to just really, and there goes our little baby, little Daniel. Really want to thank you, Lydia. Be in touch very soon, please. And want to really just lift up that. That we are in community with each other, right? Like, when we're thinking of the name of the baby showers, it really started with For the Love of Daniel, and we weren't ready to call the baby showers For the Love of Daniel at that time, but we want to lift Daniel up now. So our next baby shower is scheduled for May 6th. We're planning to have it in the mighty Ward 4, potentially. Working hard to get that all squared away on the back end with our fierce and dedicated, loyal Jedi Planning Committee, which is our advisory body. And Jedi, Daniel has been such a part of coming into these baby. Actually, the baby showers really comes, from Fari's journey, right? Like why we knew that we needed to have community baby showers has so much to do with Fari's journey, which I don't know if we have the time to really get into it. I do want to spotlight that at some point. Fari, we need a book. We need something. We need the whole story because it's deep and it's beautiful and it's powerful, and still we all rise and stand and we keep us safe, right? That's what we say. We keep us safe. So any closing words from you guys as to like how you feel about anything that we've gone over tonight? Just thoughts. And we do hope to be curating again, literacy. We want to start a literacy box and curate materials. I'm really excited to talk to Lydia more now that I know that they're autistic authors. Maybe some are writing on that we can uplift some of those books in those box lines and really, if you're going to read, might as well read something that's going to power you and your identity and your journey and capture that story. But that's my takeaway. I want to hear you guys take. And Fari, I'd love you to take us out with something wellness. And Carla, I know you do wellness as well. So any of our wellness coaches are more grounded people than Chioma want to add some grounding thoughts as we exit out from tonight from our little party here.
Okay, 1 second. I don't know that Daniel will cooperate for closing. It's past his dinner time, and you know what? It's past his feeding time, as they used to say when I worked at the commissary in the zoo for the animals. It's feeding time.
But he's the boss, so we just gonna follow his lead.
I am really praying that this is the beginning, that this is the first cohort of many, and that the evolution of this work will give birth to so many self-advocates in the city that because of this work, we will see caregivers showing up in spaces, um, blowing people's minds because of how informed they are, how aware of their rights they are, and how they're able to articulate not only what their families deserve, but what they're entitled to. And that's one of the greatest blessings that has come from knowing you, Chioma, is that on my first time around as a mother of a child with special needs, I sat back and accepted all the crap that they shoved into my family, not knowing, literally clueless, that there was so much more that we were entitled to. But then with my grandchildren, this second time around, I am much more prepared to go into IEP meetings, and that is what I want for all of the moms. And now, beginning on a new journey of understanding whether or not baby Daniel has autism, is not something that I'm afraid of as I was the first time
Nothing to
around.
fear. Nothing to
It's
fear.
something that we can embrace. It's something that has a uniqueness and just something that can be so beautiful as we navigate systems in a trauma focused paradigm as opposed to that trauma informed evidence based practice that really does us, that keeps us sick.
It
And
keeps us
so, yeah, I look forward to sitting in on cohort B, C, D, E, and F. um,
from
and
your
so
lips to God's ears. Let's. I think somebody, Lindsay, lifted up. Yeah, we so funders. If you're hearing, we'd love to run 1,000 cohorts. We just need the capital to
right.
do it. Right?
And then what my aha moment for tonight was Lindsay's artistic way of expressing the needs of our families. I really think there's a movement there. I really think on a large scale, with a big art build or just 100 people, um, you know, showing up with their families with their own artistic drawing of that way, or even curating some kind of exhibit that can be displayed so that everyone can see and everyone can join this movement. For everyone listening, you don't have to have neurodiversities to join this movement.
That's
You,
right.
just like you don't have to be Black to join Black Lives Matter.
That's
Um,
right.
we need all um, hearts and minds on this journey with us to wellness. So thank you.
Yeah, so you guys can't see it, but this room, I wouldn't call it this room is surrounded with artwork of my oldest son, my brilliant autistic 11-year-old. And yeah, there is something about art and autism, and maybe, hey, let's do that. But Carla, you wanna what are your parting thoughts? Like what are you thinking now as we wind out and out?
I just think for me, I feel like it was a task given to me before birth that I am living out, and even when I didn't know I was preparing, I was preparing, and and now I understand what it was for. So I'm trying to live my purpose, and I think that venues like this are great because it um, affords people who don't have, I think, the gift I've been given, basically, but who are on a parallel path. And I think these forums are great to lift everyone up. And I'm always interested in understanding the experience of people who are living differently than I am, whether it's parents or people who have quote unquote disabilities. So, I mean, I think these spaces are important. I think that people have a need to speak, to be heard, and so I'm happy that you're providing that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Sorry, is it? I think my computer is slowly dying, and I think it's time to roll out. But our visibility is important for our community. That we are just, while yes, we have different levels of understanding and different levels of access, but we're all on this journey together. And I love how you just put it so brilliantly. Like, yes, we're given gifts, right? So to all whom much is given, much is required. And I mean, again, when I couldn't see a path forward, you did. And that is a very unique, needed gift, right? That, and all our gifts don't have to be on Front Street. Sometimes it's just in that moment when no one else is there, and there's somebody there to tell you that you're not alone, right? Like, that's so important. And we hope to create more intimate community where we show up for each other, that we don't go into anything isolated, alone. We don't take on any fight, any new journey, any new diagnosis, any new whatever it is. That part of being in community is that we share these things with each other, and that we lift each other up. And we are a market, right? We have valuable institutional knowledge, and that needs to be leveraged 100%, which I know all of you know, but particularly you, Carla, right? Know that. But Renee, take us out. What are your last thoughts, Mama?
Wow. Well, there was I cited on another autism awareness neurodivergent panel earlier today, and I want to mention it because on that panel there were no Black African descendant mothers on that entire panel. And but there was a brother on that panel. There was an African American man on the panel, and he said something really profound. And he said, we are the PhD holder of our own experience. We got the PhD in me, meaning that whatever, as we go forth in our journeys, we all have to lay claim to our own title, that nobody's a better expert in who we are as individuals, and who our children and young people and our family members are within their disability than us. And so as we go forth, we need to lay claim to it, bring it up all the time. I'm Chioma, I'm gonna owe you a quarter every time I forget to refer to you as Dr. Chioma, and Carla and Farid. Y'all are the PhD in through the lifespan journey for me. I may be a late to the game mom, meaning I had my children after some years, after some Peace Corps experiences abroad, internationally. Shout out to that third goal, the third goal of the Peace Corps, the fourth goal of the Peace Corps. But again, we are all experts in who we are in our own lives. And in the spirit of the named benefactor of the elementary school my kids went to today, just for a physical fitness group, it was the Shriver Kennedy Elementary School in Silver Spring. And for those who don't know, that just refers back to some of the original people that put together Special Olympics and AmeriCorps Vista and the Peace Corps, the Kennedy Shriver connection. So those are the thoughts that I have in culminating this today, was that we're just going to keep affirming that our own the PhD in me voice that we have as parents, as loved ones, and as family members of folks on this special journey. And I'll close my mic and hold for the wind down. But woo!
Yeah, little Jedi here is coming to take over. So it's definitely time, time to make an exit and face the family.
Hey, Jedi.
So, Jedi, say hi.
Hi.
So yes, thank you all so much for a wonderful community care party. We hope to do this monthly, and maybe we'll have an opportunity to do something in person outdoors during the warmer months. We shall see. But thank you all. Have a wonderful and safe and blessed evening and see you in the streets, right? See you in the streets.
All right.
Good night.
Agape love, everyone.
Agape love. Love it.
Bye.
Bye-bye.